Oh, hey there. Cardboard Brewing Company isn't just for interesting cards or underrated cards. The experience that you and your playgroup have while playing Commander matters a lot too, especially the Cardboard Brewing Company. I've scrapped many decks that worked really well, but they left a bad taste in my mouth or my opponent's mouth, and I think that's part of playing Commander is figuring out what decks are really fun to play. Commander's a game where we spend our free time playing, and I'm all about making the most out of our free time and having the most fun with it. So I'll start this whole video off picking a fight with a very common piece of advice given to deck building. The advice is run more removal, and it's talked about everywhere all the time. And it's a great piece of advice if you're looking to win more games with your deck. But running more removal can come at the cost of fun for the rest of your group, and maybe for you in some cases, because if your opponents are running more removal, maybe you have less stuff on the board. There's a balance to strike between removal and letting players do the thing for their deck. When a player makes a deck, they want it to do something. They want it to have the certain effect that they're looking to do in that game. And if you run a lot of removal, you remove the ability to do that a lot of times. Not just the cards that are a problem that you're playing against, but now you're taking away people's fun for playing a deck. It's sort of like another common saying that we hear a lot, which says too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. The magic number of removal spells that you should run in your deck is determined by the play group that you're playing with. It's not a deck building template where you have to have like 10 removal in every deck you play or something like that. Or if you want to win more games, you run more than that 10 removal. You pick a number based on what's acceptable with your play group. What's going to win you more games? If that's all you care about, then you're going to run more than the acceptable number. And if you want to have more of a free-flowing game in a sense, letting players do their thing and build up their board, well, you run less removal so that more players can do their thing. But you have to imagine a scenario where the most optimal deck that you can make is a deck that just runs a ton of board wipes, and it just wipes the board every single turn. So nobody gets permanents, or nobody gets creatures, or nobody gets anything that they've built the board up for. They're just always returned. Like, that's a very optimal way to play. It's very good. Giving players nothing to play with is an easy way to win the game. But is that a fun way to play the game? I mean, how many times have we heard the discussion about the card Farewell? It's come up a few places where when somebody casts Farewell, people just wish the game was over instead of exiling the whole board. Let's just start over. That's a very common complaint about Farewell because it resets the game. People want to play through and finish a game, not keep the game going. And if you're behind, casting a board wipe is usually the right thing to do, but it may come with a lot of pushback from your play group of like, dude, this game's been going on for 3 hours. Why are we resetting the board again? You know what I'm saying? More removal doesn't always mean it's the best option because, yeah, it might be great for you winning the game, but it might be worse for your play group in continuing to play Magic more than one game. Or even more than one session. Maybe you all got to play today, but next week when you're going to play again, you might not get invited back. Or they don't want to play with those decks anymore. And so when you pull out that one deck that has a lot of removal, people groan at the deck. And this whole talk goes beyond the bracket system too. The bracket system, we've got a whole bunch of parameters for what makes a deck a certain bracket. But the bracket system, we're going to talk about how many removal spells you can run in a deck in order to make it a bracket 2 or a bracket 3. You can play whatever cards you want in a deck, but that doesn't mean you should. I've had multiple games where my opponent's deck is like popping off. It's going crazy. And there's nothing wrong with this. But what is wrong is when that opponent says at the end of the game, hey, sorry about how that game went, y'all. My deck was going crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You're the one who played the cards. You don't have to play them. The deck didn't force you to cast those cards. Playing optimally and playing to have fun with your group may not be the same thing. If you want to see your deck go crazy, and that's the thing, is to wipe everyone out very quickly or whatever else, then do it. That's fine, but own it. Own that you're going to do it. Don't apologize for it. The main point I'm trying to make here is be sure to talk to your group about the games that you play. Ask them questions. Does your group enjoy the decks that you play? Do they get tired of their cards being removed or messed with too much? Does it feel like every game is just removing everything on the board constantly before something just sticks? Those are great questions to ask the people you play with, the people you play with regularly anyways, to see if they want to keep playing against decks like that, because it can inform you of, yeah, it's an optimal play, but maybe I want to be able to play with these people some more. I like to build my decks with a handful of removal cards, maybe 5 to 7. That's kind of the magic number for me. But after I play the decks a few times, I take note of how often I needed more removal in order to stay in the game, or I was using removal for most of the game. And then I add removal spells or remove removal spells for the deck as needed based on those stats. And this is all through the idea that I'm not looking to have a deck that wins 100% of the games I play, right? You have to keep this in mind in the play group too. If you're playing with 3 other people, yourself and 3 other players, there's 4 players total. If you want a balanced and fair play group, your deck should win 1 out of 4 times, a 25% win rate. if you're winning more than that, you might need to tone things down a little bit. Like, congrats, you're winning a lot of games. But if you want to keep your play group real happy and have more people to play with more often, consider just winning 1 out of 4 games and feeling really good about that. As a quick note here, there's a term in Commander that we use sometimes called archenemy, which usually is like one player's deck is going bananas crazy good, and so the other 3 players have to team up to take down that one player. And for the people who really like to be the archenemy, understand that most of the time playing as the archenemy is fun, but your other playgroup people don't like it. It's not fun to play against. That's why they had to team up to take you down. I imagine if you asked your playgroup if they like having to team up against you almost every game that they play, they would say no, right? It means that you're out of balance, that you're doing too much for your group, that they have to pool their resources together to even be able to play a game with you. So, something to think about. I won't go too deep here. But another thing to consider when you're building a deck is how you're going to win the game. And is that going to be a deck that every player is going to enjoy? There are cards that get played that make players groan. And when they groan, there's a reason for it. Like, I instantly think of the card Torment to Hailfire as a groan-worthy game-ending card. This card is a terrible card to play against. It feels awful to try to deal with. It's a situation where somebody puts 10 mana into Torment to Hailfire, and people have to decide if they're going to sack 8 permanents, take 24 damage, or some mix of whatever. And at that point, if you're spending 10 mana for that card, let's just call it the game's over, right? Try to figure out if you can survive that and then work your way out of the rubble after that card is cast. Is not a fun experience. It's not, and it's used all the time because it's a really good card. It's a really good card. I'm not saying it's a toxic card because of how often it's used. It's very powerful. But if it just said pay 10 mana, you win the game, I think a lot of people would feel a lot better and just ending the game right there and starting over. And it doesn't feel good to play against that, to try to figure out the mental gymnastics of, can I survive this card or can I not? And also 2 other players have to decide that too, while one player sits back and hangs out. Right? Or another card. Let's put this one. There's an experience that I had with my own deck. I was running an allies deck that every card in the deck was a permanent except for the card Primal Surge. This is a very common or fun combo kind of deck idea, where as soon as you cast Primal Surge, you get to put your whole deck onto the battlefield. And I built the deck thinking this is insane because allies all trigger off each other, and so I'm going to put the whole deck out and get this massive ally trigger board, and then everyone's going to die on that turn because there's just so much going on. And the first time I cast Primal Surge, it was like a 20-minute turn to reveal all the cards off the top of my deck, deal with all the triggers all at once, and then realize that the game's just over. Like, we didn't have to sit through that. And I immediately scrapped that deck after the one and only game I played with it where I got Primal Surge pulled off, because I felt the rest of my opponents sitting there being like, you won the game, man. Let's just call it. And it's like, but I want to do the thing. The thing for my deck is to trigger all these allies. Well, it's not fun. It's not fun to sit through that. You know what I'm saying? And so that's another thing to keep in mind, is like how you're ending the game matters, because how long are we going to have to sit here to realize that we could have just shuffled up and started another one as soon as we did the thing? You know what I mean? Or let's go a little bit controversial here. This is just my own opinion, but like a lot of decks chase infinite combos to win games. And I've been playing Commander for over 15 years. I've run a few infinite combos myself, and I've definitely been on the receiving end of a lot of infinite combos. And because of that, I've officially hung up my hat on ever running infinite combos on purpose in decks. It never feels good to have them happen against me. I don't enjoy that feeling of like, we're going to watch this player solitaire or just instantly win the game when they put these 2 or 3 cards together. When I was playing infinite combos, it was fun for me because I got to do the thing, the infinite combo thing. But my players are like, okay, well, let's make this happen. Let's get this over with. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And so I don't play them anymore. And we can also bring up like one of the biggest Commander channels on YouTube, Command Zone podcast. They do games, and as far as I know, they don't have any infinite combos in any of the games that they film, right? If I missed one, my bad. But they don't do that on purpose. There's a reason why. It's not fun to watch. It's not fun to feel when you're on the receiving end. That's my opinion, though. Like, if you like to do that, whatever, you can make decks however you want to. The whole point of the video is, what are decks that people are going to enjoy playing against? And pretty much every single time an infinite combo happens in a game, players are just like, oh, doesn't matter if you're the one pulling it off or you're the one on the receiving end. There are players that, again, they're like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So you do what you want with them. Just my 2 pennies. There's more creative ways to win than infinite combos. The last point I'll make on the negative end of this is there's also things to consider with what commanders that you put to helm a deck as well, right? Imagine we sit down at a game of Commander together, and I'm sitting across the table for you, and I show you this Commander. How do you immediately feel about how this game's going to be? How about this one? We know what these two decks are going to do, and when those commanders are on the battlefield, it's going to be a bad time. What if I change them just slightly? Instead of Atraxa, how about this? What if this is my commander? How do you feel immediately about this commander? Or what if I swap out Miriam for this card? Right? The decks could be essentially the same exact thing and even mirror the colors, but there might be some minor differences between. Atraxa is a 4-color commander, so it's hard to do that, you know. But it's a proliferate deck. And so you could do pretty much the same exact deck with Xavier Sol, and it would be almost exactly the same feel, but your players feel different sitting down across the table from a Xavier Sol deck than an Atraxa deck. Does that make sense? The card in your command zone may make a huge difference in how you and your play group enjoy the game. And here's my reason why. There are many commanders that exist that if they remain on the battlefield, the game's over. If they just sit there, it's going to go crazy, right? Atraxa is a fantastic example here. If you let Atraxa live, you lose. It's going to do the thing way too much, which brings up a big problem. If you're the player playing the Atraxa deck, either you have Atraxa removed constantly every time you cast it, which makes the game less fun for you because you really want Atraxa to be on the board, or Atraxa remains on the battlefield and it takes over the game, which is no fun for your play group, for your opponents, right? It's one or the other. There's no middle ground between those two. That's a really great example of commanders. Like if you put in the command zone and they're not dealt with, it's game over, or it's dealt with all the time, which is the right move so you don't lose. But if you're the one running that card, you feel awful because your commander got blown up a ton of times. But what if you made the same exact deck, but with a different card in the command zone? It runs the exact same way, but now the other players in your play group are feeling better about the game because they don't have to instantly remove your commander every time it gets played out, and you get to do the thing more often. And honestly, if you just threw those really powerful cards into the 99 cards into the commander deck and not at the command zone, you still get to play those cards. It feels great to play with them. Your opponents still have to respond to them, but it's not going to be there every single game and multiple times every single game like that card is in the command zone. It's something to consider of how you could change how that deck feels for you and your opponents when you just swap out the command zone card, the commander, and then put that really powerful commander into the 99. You still get to play with it. You still get to do the same thing. That's a lot of talk about what not to do in a deck to make it more enjoyable for everyone, but what can you do to make commander games more fun for everybody? Well, I'll start by encouraging players to still put the cards that they want to play in their deck. Don't remove cards. Just keep them in there. I'm not saying that you shouldn't run Torment of Hailfire or infinite combos in decks. You can do what you want. But I do think that everyone should consider what makes the game more fun when they choose the cards that they choose to play. Fun for you, yes, but also consider what makes it fun for everyone else at the rest of the table. Is your commander game going 2 or 3 hours and people just want the game to end? Well, then, yeah, that's a great time for a Torment of Hailfire or an infinite combo. You end the game and start a new one. But it feels way worse to play those cards when you do it on turn 5 and the game's just getting going. You could also try some other lesser run and more fun game-ending cards, too. I mean, have you ever seen a game with this card? This card's incredible. It's super funny, and it's a great way to secure a win in Izzet colors. You should give it a try sometime. It's like 10 cents. It's a super cheap card, and it'll end the game on the spot. And you should definitely keep running removal in your decks. They keep you in the game. That's what removal spells are for, is to remove the problems. But you never have to use removal. You're not forced to do it. It's more about reading the game state and deciding when the best time to use that removal is. That's another reason why having less removal sometimes matters more, because it makes you pick and choose what the correct target is for that very valuable removal piece in your deck is, because you don't have that many removal pieces to begin with. The best games of Commander that I've ever played are the ones where your deck got to do something substantial in that game. The token deck got to make a bunch of tokens, the ramp deck got to cast huge CMC cards, and the Voltron deck got to eliminate or get really close to eliminate somebody with their commander. When every deck got to do something awesome or the thing for their deck, it doesn't matter who wins after that. Everyone had a good time. When you allow players time and space to give everyone's deck the chance to do the thing that they want to do, that's great practice for making a game really fun for everyone. All right, let me give you a quick example. I've got a deck that wants to be attacking and returning creatures that died in combat back to the battlefield. And if I get to do this in the game, I'm pretty happy regardless of how the game actually ends. But if I don't get to attack or my commander is constantly removed, then I spend the game doing nothing. The deck doesn't do anything. It's just a barren battlefield. And though that may be the best way to play the game against me to win, did everyone get to play the game? And it's easy to make it sound like I'm whining and not being able to play the game and that people should make concessions for me. But think back to the last Commander game where that happened to you, and you'll know exactly what I'm getting at. Those games where you put cards on the field and then they never got to stay there for more than a turn. They're just constantly removed. Commander is a social format first, not a competitive one, unless your playgroup wants it to be competitive, but that's a whole different conversation. The fun that we make for ourselves and for the other players at the table is what Commander is all about. And this is the crux of what I'm trying to get at. The way you build decks that every player will enjoy is not just about card selection completely. It's about when and how those cards are used, right? Goes beyond the bracket system. Every card in Magic can create a great environment for a variety of playgroups. Knowing your playgroup and what you all think makes for a great Commander game informs you of what cards to select for your deck and then when to use those cards in a game. Yes, that 10/10 double strike Commander card is super scary. But maybe if I just need to convince that player not to attack me instead of removing it. It's more fun to let that player hit somebody else for a ton of Commander damage and then maybe point the removal spell at the Commander when they decide to attack you. And, you know, a brew or two drank responsibly may help the Commander games be more fun, too. If you're looking for another round, check out one of these videos. And thanks for watching.